Today I'm talking about a couple of critical components that I am going to be watching for even more so than I have previously before buying any sports card. Coming right up, guys. Hello to all my sports card collector, investor, all my collectibles friends around the world. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I hope that you had an amazing weekend. I'm actually filming this on Sunday for it to come out Monday morning, so technically it's still the weekend for me. My wife and I are gearing up to watch the England-Italy battle. I'm on Team England side. She is Italian, so she is for Team Italy. We'll find out tomorrow how that shakes out. And then we've got Game 3 of the NBA Finals. It's a great sports day, so I'm fired up for that. So by tomorrow morning, we will know kind of the endings to these sagas, the Game 3 and the soccer game. So we'll see. Soccer? I don't know. I'm not French. I don't know what happened there. Big thank you to the Bench Clear Media team for allowing me to participate in the Hobby Palooza event over the weekend. That was a lot of fun, guys. It was 3 days of hobby content, and it was done by Bench Clear Media, put it on. I was on Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's on my channel if you want to check it out. And it was just basically an hour live stream where I showed some of my PC cards. We talked about the National and some other hobby-related topics. It was a good time. So definitely check that out along with the other content from the event. Okay, guys, in today's video, we are going to talk about injuries and athlete image and how that can affect sports cards, sports card prices, etc. And I think that I'm going to kind of talk about how it can affect both collectors, investors, hybrids, of this, because I think a lot of us are hybrids in the sports card market to some degree. And so I want to talk this through because we've seen this kind of happen over the last couple of weeks. It's been paramount, and I'll explain. But as far as the injuries go, we just recently had Ronald Acuna, who is a huge baseball star, prospect, up-and-coming star in the MLB, went down with a torn ACL. On the NBA side, we're sitting here watching the NBA Finals, and Giannis in the semifinals almost went down with a knee injury. What looked like a pretty bad hyperextended knee, really bad look and play, but he has kind of walked it off. He's still playing at a really, really high level, which is incredible because he has to be feeling effects from it. There has to be pain from it. It just goes to show how important this series is, for him. I mean, he wants to play so badly, he's going to play through that pain if possible. And so, but it just shows you how fragile, an athlete's career or season can be. And then, of course, how that relates to sports cards, because in most cases, and I don't know, let me know if I'm missing something here, but when an athlete gets injured, a modern athlete that's playing, typically what I've seen over the last few years of getting back into the hobby is the card prices move downward for that particular player. And it's simply because they're not playing. There's question marks as to whether or not, they're going to be able to come back at full strength. Or are they going to be able to come back for the season? Is it the following season? Short-term injuries you can kind of work around, but, torn ACLs and Achilles and that sort of stuff, has a much longer effect. Why is this important? Well, if you are a sports card buyer or seller, of course it's important because you might be targeting a certain player with the attitude of, okay, I'm going to buy this player maybe in the off season. I'll hold on to it for a little bit, maybe for 6 months, 3 months, a year, whatever it is, and then I will look to maybe sell that player. And if they have a torn ACL, you're looking at a minimum, it's a 6-month recovery time at absolute minimum. Fortunately, sports science has come around to where torn ACLs used to be a much bigger deal than they are now. Now, I mean, the rehab process starts, the surgery is immediate, they get on rehab. You're talking about, 6, 7, 8 months, and a lot of times they can come back at full strength. We've seen it over and over. Achilles injuries are a little bit different. That's actually what's amazing about Kevin Durant coming back this season, coming off of an Achilles, because really, if you look at statistics, NBA basketball players that have Achilles injuries, I think it was something like 30 to 35% come back at full strength. And a lot of them, there's a certain percentage that never come back, that never play again at that high level. They can't start in the NBA anymore. Suffering an Achilles injury, it usually means kind of a downward slide for that player. Kevin Durant has just been and the way that he played, especially in the postseason too, just incredible how he was able to come back. But I mean, even if you go back to my childhood, Bo Jackson. He was a guy that was on top of the world. Bo knows everything. Bo was it. He was on the cover of everything. I mean, he was one of the hottest athletes on the planet at the time. He has kind of a freak hip injury on a tackle. I think he was playing against the Bengals, and they tackled him on the AstroTurf or whatever. Back then, they didn't have the same, softish fake grass that they used to have, or that they do now. And, Bo's career was essentially over. He did come back and play a little bit more. He played baseball, but he wasn't the same guy. And, one big difference between then and now, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty certain that there wasn't any kind of, RPA 1 of 1. There was no $50,000 Bo Jackson cards that people were, getting into. Whereas, with Giannis, for example, you see his knee buckle. Last year there was an RPA Giannis that went for $1.7 million, $1.6 million. That's a tremendous amount of money for an athlete that's never won a championship. That's a heck of a lot of money. So stakes are a lot higher today than they were 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. You could argue the stakes have never really been higher with some of these really high dollar cards. Modern cards is mainly what I'm talking about. And some would say this is a testament to buying already established Hall of Famers. This is a testament to buying guys that their careers are over. But the other side of this video, the other side of that story is image for an athlete. So what kind of made me think about this is my wife and I were watching a Tiger Woods documentary on HBO Max. I don't know if it's brand new, but I hadn't seen it. And so I went on. If you haven't seen it, definitely, if you have HBO Max, watch it, or I think there might be a free trial or something for HBO Max, but it was a really good documentary. Some stuff I didn't remember because that, a lot of his scandal stuff was from 13, 14 years ago now. It's been a while. And it just gives you kind of a play-by-play of his, starting out as, in his youth, learning the game of golf, and with his dad Earl kind of bringing him along, and then everything. It's basically start to finish of him, winning this most recent Masters. And it's an incredible story. But if you think about the up and down, road that Tiger Woods, he's a GOAT of golf. Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods rule golf, and so for the majority of people that never saw Jack Nicklaus play, Tiger Woods is really it. Tiger Woods is the golf GOAT because, Jack Nicklaus might have more major wins, but not many people have actually watched him play in his heyday anyway, back when he was playing during his career. So that's a great example of where image can change on a dime, for an athlete. And of course, that can have an effect on card prices. And you might say a collector doesn't care because a 1,000% collector that's never going to sell the card, they don't care about that. But yeah, they do, because they might actually say, I've been collecting this guy, and now this guy or gal, and now I don't really believe in what they're doing or whatever. I don't like this athlete anymore for whatever reason. They get in trouble with law enforcement, or they have, whatever that thing is, and that can change your attitude on, why am I collecting this person? Maybe I don't want to collect this person anymore. And so then it's kind of all right, well, maybe I don't need these cards as much. So image can have a huge effect too on sports card pricing, collectability, all of it. So, it kind of just speaks again to the risks involved when buying and selling sports cards. You have to really kind of, enjoy what you're doing, but also as part of that analyzation process, analyzation, is that a word? I don't think it is, but I just made it one. Sort of. I don't know, a PFD-ism or something? I don't know. I'm pretty sure analyzation's not a word. Anyway, let's get back to it. So, but I think that's kind of a thing to consider. I think that injuries are always a thing that people do think about. Does the athlete have an injury history? And then as far as image goes, are there any, possible negatives that could be out there? Any history of that sort of thing that could come up later? I think that should be kind of part of the whole picture. And of course, look, injuries and image it's a crapshoot, a lot of this stuff. We don't know what's going to happen with a lot of these players' careers. We don't know what's going to happen with anyone's careers. No one can see the future. No one's got a crystal ball. That's part of the added risk in it. Also part of the fun of it. part of the fun of it. But, I think it's really important to consider when really leveraging, if you're going to go in on one player, maybe it speaks more to diversification among players. Because frankly, I like buying some of the modern players that are still playing because that's fun. But then I also like the older stuff. I like vintage guys that are not playing anymore, Hall of Famers. I buy, all of it. So I think it's good to have a good mix, but definitely kind of, for me, I'm keeping that in mind as I'm buying modern cards compared to vintage cards, and keeping that kind of top of mind as to just not to forget the risks in this stuff. You have a guy like, and maybe like a Ronald Acuna is a guy where you're like, what? He's a great player. Maybe you think he's a generational player. I'm okay holding his cards until he comes back and all the rest of it. And that speaks to, I think, again, just really doing the research into buying into, believing into a player, really believing in that player, and thinking like, if this person has an injury, can I withhold holding his cards for a year or 2 years or 5 years based on how much of my budget I'm putting in? Because it might be that you have a PC collection of Ronald Acuna where you're like, what? Like, I'm holding this. But then you also have kind of a, I'm buying and selling some of these Acunas to maybe get a nicer Acuna if you're a collector of his. And so that's where, you run into this. It's like the collector investor mix where you're like, okay, I need to pay attention to this stuff. So I thought this was worth bringing up. Some would say like, oh, this is an obvious thing, but it smacks us in the face when we least expect it at times. So I wanted to talk about it. I've made a couple of videos on this previously over the last year and, few months, but I thought it'd be worth bringing up again just with some of the recent injuries. Guys, I hope that you have an amazing Monday. Let's start this week off well. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will see you again next time.